former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Mr. Mayor, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, Natasha.
And you are the former Democratic leader of the biggest city in the U.S. What do you make of the struggles facing the Democratic Party nationwide right now?
Natasha, we got to be honest about the mistakes we made in 2024, and we got to turn our focus back to the grassroots, back to the working class. But you know what? I'm actually encouraged these last few weeks. I think this is a very, very interesting juxtaposition. Massive rallies with Bernie and AOC, Tim Walz, all these folks now going out to the people, including red states, purple districts, going out and talking to people about the fact that Donald Trump is giving away the store to billionaires and to Elon Musk. Well, meanwhile, Republicans aren't even willing to do town hall meetings in their own district because they're worried there's too much opposition on issues like Social Security and Medicaid. You know, I think if you were talking about a few weeks ago, you would say the Democratic Party is rudderless, but you actually are seeing a real turn now where Democrats are starting to find their voice again. And I think President Trump and Elon Musk are pretty vulnerable at this moment.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Is this, the tidal wave of protests we've been looking at Tesla dealerships, people saying that Musk is an unelected billionaire? Is this a vulnerability for Trump and the Trump administration? And do you think Democrats should seize on this?
Yeah, Natasha, look, let's acknowledge that, President Trump had an election victory fair and square and then came into office, sort of went on the offensive, was dominating the discussion for a few weeks. But now what's happened is he went in very extreme directions. The tariffs, for example, that are going to hurt farmers, auto workers, everyday consumers. Again, tax giveaways to the billionaires. That's the plan. People do not want to see billionaires doing even better at this moment. So what's happening is a real response all over the country. I mean, just think about cutting back on the Veterans Administration, not providing as much support for our veterans. This is the kind of thing that really bugs independent voters, moderate voters. And what Democrats are finally doing, it took a while, but they're finally doing is filling that void with a real message that we're not going to stand for that. So, on that vote a few days back on the budget, things were in disarray. We can't lie about that. But now I'm really encouraged to see a populist, progressive message, kitchen table message that I think is exactly where we have to be for 2026 and 2028 up ahead.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the midterms and what kind of shape your party is in just a moment. I do want to ask, looking to Democrats trying to regain the White House, do you think Kamala Harris should run again, or does she need to step aside for a new Democratic candidate?
I think it would be tough for her, Natasha, because unfortunately, that was a winnable election that she didn't win. I fully appreciate, she put together a very strong campaign on short notice. I want to give her a lot of respect for that. But in the end, what people needed to hear was that Democrats understood what working people were going through, understood what the impact of inflation was and their concerns about the border. And let's face it, we didn't do that. So I think when you have a situation like that, a lot of times what's going to make sense is new voices, new leadership. That's where I suspect the party's going.
Yeah, it sounds like you think she should step aside.
Again, I respect every candidate's choice, but I'm just going to say I think it'd be very tough for her to make the argument after what happened in 24.
Do you plan on running for president? What would you bring to the office?
It's very nice of you to ask, Natasha. No such plans. I'm a private citizen, but I'm going to be very actively involved in the effort to really move us back to this progressive direction of the party. I got to tell you, it's almost like, 8-10 years ago when the progressive wing of the party was really talking about these grassroots issues, these like basic issues, Medicaid for all and making sure kids could go to college and things that really resonated with everyday Americans. Now I think we have a chance to get back to that kind of message and obviously to say, for example, we don't want tax giveaways to billionaires. And who's the better poster child for that than Elon Musk? The door is wide open for a progressive message again. And the most dynamic elements in the party are those progressive leaders. So I want to support that return to something that was actually working for us.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see the potential opportunity Musk has given Democrats in that way. We'll see what they do with it. We have to talk about Schumer because many Democrats have been vocal in their disappointment with Senate Minority Leader Schumer after he voted to support the Republican-drafted funding bill to help avoid a shutdown. We see Congressman Ro Khanna saying Americans are fed up with the old guard. What do you make of the work Schumer is doing right now in the Senate? Was it the right call to support the GOP funding bill?
Natasha, I think this is an example of the right tactical call, but it was expressed the wrong way. I mean, the House stood up against that bill. And if the Senate was going to go in a different direction, they really had to explain that a lot better and a lot earlier. And let's be fair. I think what Schumer was worried about was all the negative impact of a government shutdown on everyday working people, on federal employees who we depend on our court system, which has been a real check and balance on Trump. I think he was right to be concerned. And essentially his message was, let's live to fight another day. But that message came so late and was so weak, it gave people a lack of confidence. He's the Senate leader. He's not our public leader. He's not our charismatic spokesperson. Look, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Tim Walz are the people who are speaking out on the issues and are being felt out in the heartland. Chuck Schumer is a person who runs things in Washington. But I think it was a missed opportunity, but we got a chance to make it up. There's going to be a debt ceiling vote and other opportunities to get it right and say, we are not going to collaborate with the Republicans unless they moderate this very extreme agenda they're working on.
Okay, speaking of potential charismatic spokespeople within the party, let's talk about California Governor Gavin Newsom. He is upsetting some fellow Democrats. He launched his podcast. He invited some right-wing guests like Steve Bannon in a non-confrontational way. Your thoughts on Newsom's chats?
It's kind of like the Schumer situation. I think it's a little abrupt, and I think that's been surprising to people, especially because there's such anger right now at what Steve Bannon and the whole MAGA crowd are doing to us. I mean, they're literally trying to take apart everything in our national government that serves working people, and all, again, to the benefit of billionaires. So I think Governor Newsom was trying to show that we need to talk to the whole spectrum, and I agree with that. I think it kind of came out of nowhere, and it was a little bit of a shock to the system, and maybe could have been handled a little different that way.
Is this just Newsom's way of trying to bridge the gap before a potential 2028 presidential bid?
Oh, I think that is what he's trying to do. And, look, there's going to be valid discussion on some of the issues that the public was not comfortable with us on. I think there's a lot of issues around immigration and the border where we have to do a much better job of articulating a vision and owning some of our mistakes. But I think that's a different question than the big direction we have to take. As a party, if we try and moderate, there's this famous notion that if the Republicans are seen as authentic and Democrats are trying to be Republican light, it just doesn't work. The big differentiation now is going to be who's on the side of working people, who's willing to challenge the status quo. And Democrats can obviously regain that space, especially up against a Musk-dominated government. That's where I think our party needs to go. I don't know if that's a direction Gavin Newsom's thinking of, but I think any candidate who's trying to figure out, hey, how can I appeal to the moderates? It actually will backfire if the moderates don't think you're authentic.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we're out of time, but I have to ask, do you think that Gavin Newsom is the right candidate to run for Democrats for president?
Look, too early to choose candidates, but he's a strong candidate, unquestionably. I have a lot of respect for him. But again, I think what we're going to see is this deep bench. Democrats have an extraordinarily deep bench. It's been a tough last few months, but we actually have more talent than we've had.
Yeah, I keep hearing about the deep bench. I keep hearing about that. Well, we'll see how this shakes out, but certainly appreciate the analysis, the perspective. Mayor Bill de Blasio, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.